Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host Elion, and we are here with Dan and Lance from Edge of Insanity. Welcome, guys.
What's up?
Thank you for having us.
So, guys, could you introduce yourselves? Cool.
I'm
No
Lance.
worries, no worries. Could you introduce yourselves and what you?
I'm Lance, lead vocals.
I'm Dan, bass and what they call rhythm guitar.
Cool, cool. So, guys, let's take some questions. So, as kids, what were you listening to?
Why don't you give Sturgis's answer first?
Sure. So Sturgis and mine are not terribly different. We were both listening to late night FM. Where we grew up, late night FM was the heaviest music. Earlier in the day, it was always the more commercially successful, the poppy stuff. And then after 10 o'clock, where I grew up, you'd start getting the Iron Maiden and Metallica and Megadeth, occasionally some Slayer. So definitely late night FM. But I didn't really get into the heavy stuff until later. I grew up listening to 50s and 60s rock and country. My parents are into it. We lived out in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, so old school country, BB King, Elvis.
I heard you. Well, seeing as how I'm probably the oldest in the band, as a kid, I was listening to your normal stuff: Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Kiss, Alice Cooper, Nazareth, a lot of Thin Lizzy. That's what my brother basically just blasted throughout the house when I was growing up.
And right, and older siblings, you kind of are at the mercy of whatever.
Exactly. He had
on.
He was the one with the big ass stereo, so you got what you got. Whatever album he threw on there, it got cranked up to 10, and that's pretty much. It wasn't until later I started getting into my parents' music. The 50s stuff like the Beach Boys and stuff like that. It was much. I was probably in my teenage years before I discovered that stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm the same with three older siblings. Always get
Right.
bombarded with Elvis and stuff like that, and it's just like you can't take it away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and my siblings were much older. I was 13 years younger than the next younger, or 13 years younger than the next youngest sibling. So I was catching stuff that was, early 60s, late 60s, finding LPs, finding records, and who's this? And throwing it on. And, I fortunately was, we still had turntables back then, not just because it was nostalgic or retro. But yeah, discovering a lot of music, discovering, Buffalo Springfield, when I'd never even heard of Buffalo Springfield, never had been exposed to it because, what you listened to at home was, what the parents wanted to listen to, and the kids would sneak the secret, the metal, the rock, as we, once the parents went to bed.
Yeah, kind of the same for me, except my mom was cool.
Yeah.
Got to a certain age, and it was just kind of like she had no choice in the matter. She had to deal with it.
So who got you into music? Was it a family member or a family friend, or was somebody from school?
For me, it was kind of friends at school, but definitely my older brother Ty. Like I said, from my earliest memories, there was always, hard rock, heavy rock. Even the first time I ever heard Judas Priest on Rock-a-Rolla, when he brought that album home, I was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there, and just losing my mind listening to that stuff. So yeah, definitely my older brother.
When Sturgis had said it was Black Sabbath, the first time he really heard Black Sabbath, the riffs, the sludgy, heavy, dirty riffs that Iommi and Butler were throwing out there. For me, it was. I mean, I was a band nerd anyway. I think I was probably the only one of us that are willing to admit that. I played trumpet in middle school and high school, and my buddy Josh, we turned 13 within 3 weeks of each other, and he got a guitar for his birthday, his 13th birthday, and he's like, you should get a bass, and we'll start a band. And I was like, well, I don't read bass clef. He's like, it doesn't matter, you just follow the guitar anyway. Right. So yeah, 13-year-old logic, and there it is. 30 years later, still playing bass, and he still plays too. We just never have played in the band together.
Yeah. Cool. So who actually inspired you to actually pick up the bass or pick up the guitar or pick up an instrument in general?
Lance, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, man.
All right. So the first song that I remembered learning how to play was Stone Temple Pilots song. But what really sold me on the instrument, what kept me going with it, probably like every other, or at least half the kids that are my age that grew up, it was Black Sabbath. It was, Injustice for All, Metallica. It was, hearing stuff, Judas Priest and Dokken and Anthrax, and just hearing those crushing and those heavy riffs, and hearing that the instrument could be more than what we were being taught in our lessons. When we're learning how to play a quarter note groove, especially for me as a bass player anyway. Sturgis had said no one in particular. It was heavy metal as a whole. He's still inspired by something almost every day, whether it's by new music he hears, by sounds he hears in nature. I mean, by things that we do when we're rehearsing. And I can definitely agree with that. I think that every time we get together, there's some new piece of inspiration we take from one another.
I kind of got a different idea when I read that question, with who inspired me. All the great singers, man. The first time I went to my first live show, it's like I was hooked from there. I mean, everything about, performing live is what inspired me. The whole idea of jumping up and grabbing a microphone and taking control of an audience.
So you've always liked being the center of attention?
Yes, I have. Yes. Cheers.
So, what bands, if any, were you in before Age of Insanity?
Go ahead, Dan.
So, the first serious band I was in was called Blind Vision. We played together from 95 until 98. We all kind of went our separate ways. I played in a few projects while I was in the Army. I served in the Army from 06 to 15. So as people would come and go, we just, nothing serious, just to have people to play with. And the last project I was in before this was called American Sabbath. It was a Black Sabbath tribute based around the End tour and the reunion tour. But this is definitely the biggest project that I've been involved with as a musician.
What did Sturgis put? And
Sturgis, let me get his. He was in a band called Malice in Underland from 2001 until 2010. And he is currently in a band called Under a Spell since 2017.
All right, so I guess that brings it around to me. way too many to list, but some of the bigger ones, Stricken by Fate, In Words, Little Green Men, Sinners Union, just to name a couple.
I couldn't even name all the ones that Gary's been in. I think that
Gary, our drummer's basically a whore, so he's been in more bands than I am old, and that's a lot. I've always wanted to call Gary a whore on the internet.
He wouldn't disagree. Is the thing. He absolutely, and he realizes, where we are, and it's probably certainly not just where we are. There's a chronic shortage of drummers, and so he tends to spread himself, as he will.
So, what has Age of Insanity been up to, especially these last 2 years or so?
Lots of rehearsals, lots of writing. Sturgis and I are constantly in the studio writing. We're fortunate enough that our rehearsal/recording studio is in my backyard. So when he's not with Under a Spell, or he's not at work, or I'm not at work, or running around with the grandbabies, we're out back writing, and been just woodshedding for the last 2 years.
Well, we released the EP in March.
Cool.
So
Cool.
the first EP came out in March. Yeah, I mean, other than playing shows, promoting the music, recording, and getting ready to record more new music for at least, what are we looking at? Maybe 2 or 3 EPs before we do the full release.
Yeah. So as we set right now, we got I think 22 new songs. So we'll be recording those in sections, releasing them as EPs, and then putting together a full-length CD after that.
Maybe not necessarily with all 22.
Cool. Yeah, but
cream of the crop.
Yeah, the cream of the crop. The reason behind the EPs is basically testing the market on the type of music we're releasing, the type of music we're putting out, getting the best responses from that, and that's what we'll put on that first full-length CD. Plus, it just gives you a whole lot more to use for promotion.
Cool. True. So, could you tell us a little bit about the up-and-coming EPs?
Well, the one we just released is actually, Dan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's actually the first 5 songs we wrote together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Sturgis had rough ideas. I was the last one to actually get Gary. Actually, our drummer is the one that brought me in. These guys were already together for I think 4 or 5 months, maybe a little longer than that.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, and he convinced me to come halfway across town on a Monday night to come listen to these guys, and I think before that night was over, after about 3 hours of banging heads together, I think we walked out of there with the river almost intact.
Yeah, other than little small tweaks, just to little here and there, just to add some flavor to it. Yeah, it was almost about 3 hours later, and the first time we've ever all played together, we came up with a full song. So yeah, that was we knew there was some chemistry there for sure. We're trying, like Lance said, we want to put the EPs together with some stuff. Each one has a little bit of material that is sort of, market tested. How it's going to work out. What people are listening to, but then you've got some stuff that's a little bit more experimental, to go along with it. just so there's always going to be something that appeals to the market we're trying to appeal to, then some stuff that might, that might go into listeners that wouldn't typically want to listen to a heavy metal band, which is fantastic because, we can play anything from, Southern rock to prog. So when you have diverse talents, you don't have to necessarily just pigeonhole yourself into one style of music.
I can definitely guarantee you on the new stuff that's coming out. Number one, there's something for everybody, but for those of us that kind of lean more to the old school style of metal, you're gonna love the new shit coming out. We've already started pre-production on it. I think me and Sturgis have like 6 or 7 of the scratch tracks done, and then we'll probably get started. I think by the end of July is when we'll actually get in and start doing everything, get everything set up and start recording. And from there, just keep every chance we get, we'll be recording. And then getting ready for Las Vegas in May of next year. March of next year, we'll be in Las Vegas for Apocalypse in the Desert. It's probably the largest unsigned, sort of kind of unsigned, just metal festival. And bands from all over the United States are going to be blowing up Las Vegas for 2 days. Mayhem will most definitely ensue.
Yeah, I've seen, just following the page, I've seen everywhere from Washington and California all the way from Florida and Massachusetts are all heading out there. And last word I got is he's got a 60,000 seat venue set up for the 2 days. So it's going to be a hell of a good party in Vegas in March.
Plus, we're, a lot of our brothers and sisters and other bands here in the great state of Texas, we're all going to be road tripping down there, show Las Vegas what Texas metal's all about.
Cool. Speaking of Texas, I've got a tattoo from San Antonio band called Militia.
Yeah,
right on.
It's a really cool band. I really love the Militia band. It's a
Right
proper
on.
old school thrash.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right on.
I'm sporting one of my brother's t-shirts today. If you guys can read it, fellow Texas band Infidel Rising. They're a lot more on the power metal prog side, but I still love to listen to them. Figured I'd sport the t-shirt and give them a little love since we're on the show.
Cool. Yeah. So, have you got any concerts coming up?
It's not. What is it? Next weekend, Dan?
The 24th.
The 24th will be in Arlington.
Yes, not next weekend. The weekend after.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We'll be in Arlington, Texas, tearing that place up. A little place called Mavericks. We'll be tearing the hell out of that.
We just played on Thursday in Dallas. So we're just 2 days removed at Amplified. Yep.
Which, by the way, Amplified killed. For anybody that's watching this right now, get your ass to Amplified. Great place.
Yeah, great, awesome venue. Indoor stage, outdoor stage, set up for fantastic. Set up for large crowds, set up for local groups. It's best place that I think that we've played so far.
Most definitely. Sturgis and I just saw Exodus, Death Angel, and Testament there like about a month ago. So it's a kick-ass venue to go check out. But other than the show in a couple weeks, that and Las Vegas is the only thing we have on the books because we're seriously going to start recording the new stuff. And last time when we started on the EP, we had a shit ton of shows booked. And in between shows, we were, instead of rehearsing, we started recording. And going back, as much as we love that EP, there's a lot of stuff. Had we had the time, we would have done differently. So now
Well,
that
you know, having to remic the drums and, you know, having to remic everything. And Sturgis, I don't think that we give him enough credit for the talent that he has as a sound engineer,
producer,
mixer, everything. I mean, he's
cat wrangler.
Yeah. When we run, I mean, we're musicians. We're not orderly by any stretch of the imagination. So keeping us all focused at the same time for any length of time is a talent in and of itself. So
especially with a drummer like we got.
Yeah, well, but no, we were trying to at the time when we did the first EP, we were trying to also still build our name around, you know, Lance. You know, people know Lance in the Dallas Fort Worth area, but I've only lived here for 6 years and haven't played music here. So just, you know, learning the ins and outs from Lance and from Sturgis and Gary for me, while we're also still trying to play every other week, I think is what we were trying to play every other week somewhere, Lance.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, last year.
Then trying to put the drums back and, you know, putting marks on carpets and putting mics back where they're supposed to be. The recording was that it came out as well as it did. Honestly, you know,
that's all on Sturgis.
It's all on Sturgis.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we definitely we broke all the traditional rules. You know, don't play while you're rehearsing and don't move stuff around. And yeah, we just did. So
yeah.
With this one, once we go in and we start doing more than just putting the ideas, so to speak, on tape. Once we get started, we're not going to play shows in the middle of it.
So that's pretty much what we got for, I'm guessing, probably till November. Is November of this year. There's some stuff in the works I'd love to be able to talk to you about, but nothing's set in stone just yet. So we're still waiting on some contracts to come through. But
cool. So where can people find you on their social media?
Dan?
So we are on, and I was just trying to look at that earlier whenever I was poking around on Facebook, trying to find this link, actually. We're on Facebook, Edge of Insanity TX, I believe is what the link is. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We are on SoundCloud, on Amazon, on
all major
every major streaming service.
And then what's the new website? Is it edgeofinsanitytexas.com?
That's what I am. Give me 1 second and I should have already pulled that up.
You should have, because you knew I wasn't going to.
You know, it is what it is.
Right.
edgeofinsanityband.com. And I will drop that link in our chat right here. And there it is. edgeofinsanityband.com.
And then Edge of Insanity Facebook.
Yeah, well, and from the webpage you can find,
there you go,
links to everywhere. You can find links to Spotify, links to Instagram, and I will drop another link in there for the YouTube to the EP as well.
Right on.
Which again, if I'd been thinking about it earlier, I would have gotten all that. You know,
I've just posted the yeah. I've just posted the site into the chat so people can find it.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
So this is probably going to be my last question. Any advice for people who want to become musicians?
You know, the normal answer would be don't do it, stay in school. But seriously, if this is something you're really serious in and your heart's in it, don't ever stray away from your heart, man. Follow it. Follow your instinct. You know what you want to hear. Make it the best you can possibly make it.
Well, what Sturgis is, he's not too terribly far off that. Be rich, be passionate, be punctual, know the material, and be easy to work with. And I can't disagree with any of those because being a musician these days is certainly, you better take a whole lot of reward from it because you're not going to get a whole lot of income. So that's my piece of advice is, have your job be, don't expect to go into being a musician and that's going to pay your bills. Like we were talking earlier, I retired from the Army. Gary retired from the Army. I'm a history professor. Lance is a corporate man. Sturgis is a corporate man. We're, this is certainly nothing that, that we're doing to pay the bills. So have your way of getting by and save and have your passion, have your hobby, have that for after that your rent's paid and you've got food. And I kind of look at it like the Amon Amarth, the way they went about it. After they got done with a tour, they went home and they were carpenters. They had real world jobs. They weren't just musicians, being rock stars everywhere they went. They took everything seriously, did their jobs while they were on tour, and then came home and went back to their professions. Expect to be able to do that and have a real expectation that unless you happen to get lucky, that's what music is going to be. It's going to be a hobby that gives you personal fulfillment, not necessarily a nest egg.
True that.
Yeah, very true. So I think that might be about it. So thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview, guys. It's very much appreciated. Very much appreciated.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So once you get like another EP due to be released, I'm more than happy to get you back on.
Definitely.
Talk
anytime you'd like us to come back, anytime you'd like us back, we're definitely willing to.
Hell yeah. Love from Texas.
Yeah. Thank you. Love from the northeast of England.
Home of metal right there.
Home of metal.